Hey y'all, I'm Derek and welcome back to 31 Days of Found Horror. So today we have a rather short film. It is about 33 minutes long and it is called The Evil. And evil is spelt very interestingly. It is capital E space, capital V space, capital I space, and capital L. So with a name that generic, I don't know what to expect. All right, let's get started. Okay, I'm gonna come clean with all of y'all now. I honestly do not know what I'm to expect when I watch these films. I literally just type in found footage horror films when I look up in YouTube and I pick one at random. That's how I do this show. Then I tell you what I saw. I never thought that I would actually come across one that was created by an autistic person. Just to make sure that he was autistic and not just playing a bit, because I thought that was an interesting character choice, maybe not in the best taste. I literally watched some of his other videos and I am pretty certain that he is autistic. When I came to this realization, I actually questioned myself on whether or not to do this movie, but I decided that I needed to, because I watched the movie and it is for this project. So before I start, I want to tell you that I am not judging this because he is autistic. There's autism in my family. It runs rampant. But I do believe that out of respect for the creator, I need to be as forthcoming as I usually am. You shouldn't have your artistic merits judged differently simply because you have a different mental state. Having said that, I did not like this movie. So it starts with the provenance. And the provenance states that this is footage that was sent to the police officers from a camera that was found in the woods. And it belonged to a teenager named Daniel who went missing several weeks before. So they've made it public just in case anybody knows what happened to him, and everything that you're about to see is real. Okay, so that's what's called a hard sell. It means that you particularly don't believe in what you're doing and you want everybody else to believe it. And then we meet Daniel, and he has an accent that I really couldn't pinpoint. I was like, is he English? Is he Australian? He keeps talking about dollars, so maybe he's Australian. And then we learned that he's in Ireland. And he's talking about, welcome to my movie. I'm going to record some paranormal stuff that's happening around my house because nobody believes me that it's happening. And I'm trying to pay attention, but he has a mirror behind him. So everything that he's doing, we're seeing in reverse. There's a reason I don't have a mirror behind me. I don't want y'all mesmerized by this wonderful ponytail that I'm growing for locks of love. You have to think about your set dressings, y'all. I know this was done in his house, but you still have to think about where you're setting up. And he's explaining that there's things happening in his house that he does not appreciate and does not like. Okay. And since nobody believes him, he's going to get proof. There's a problem with that we'll get into later. And he's going on griping about his tripod, which when I saw his tripod, I'm like, wait a second. That's my tripod. Don't be downplaying my tripod. This tripod has seen so many episodes of everything I do on this channel, and yeah, it may be missing a foot, but you know what? That's why we have balance correction. Speaking of, 1 second. Perfect. And he's talking about his lousy parents because they don't believe him. They're the ones who bought you the camera, dude. You literally make mention that your mother bought you this camera. A little appreciation would be nice. And he wants to take us around the house, but he can't because there's guests and they don't like the camera. So he's just talking a little bit more. And while he's explaining that he can't take us around the house because of guests, he's backlit. So when you're actually addressing a camera like this, you want all the light coming at you, not from behind. The reason being is because we can't see the face. So we don't know who's talking. After all, if there's no light, how do you know I'm me? That's one of the found footage nightmares right there. Then we're finally walking around the house. He's showing us the kitchen, which is also where the fish live. He shows us his dog, and he shows us the pizza he's going to eat for dinner. And I honestly was wondering, is this going to turn into a mukbang? At this point, 1/3 of the way through this movie, he actually drops the bomb that he's autistic. I've invested this amount of time into this movie already. I'm not giving up. And then he says he's thirsty, so it's time for a drink, and he goes, gets a drink, shows us getting a drink. He cuts filming only to show us exactly what's going to happen next. There will literally be a cut in between two actions that happen, one right after the other, and there's no reason for it. I think he's trying to show that the camera itself is possessed, but I don't know, because you can sort of see him reaching from the camera to do what he's gonna do, you know what I mean? And every time he puts down his camera, it glitches, which is a signal to the audience that yes, there is paranormal activity. And then we get a little title card that says Night 1 Before Sleep. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you now, there is no other title card like that in the entire film. It was completely unnecessary, especially since there's not a Night 2. So it's Night 1 Before Sleep. He's getting ready for bed, and the camera turned itself on, if you know what I mean. So he's fixing his hair in the mirror because it's one of his fixations, and then he looks and he sees that it's on, and he literally goes, talks to the camera, "How did you get turned on? I must have left you on by mistake." You're literally trying to film paranormal activity, and you don't remember leaving that camera on, and you're not going to assume that it's paranormal activity. And then there's another title card within the very corner right here. It says End of Tape 1. The thing is, it's a different font. Everything else has been a very clerical, like, carrier font. This is kind of whimsical, and it just doesn't add anything into the story. But then it opens up the next day. He informs us nothing really happened except some bumps in the night at 4 a.m., so it was too early for him to actually record. Okay. Then it switches to a camera phone. The camera phone itself is very glitchy and there is no sound, and there's a little thing at the bottom that says footage discovered at the crime scene. What crime scene? Your Providence literally stated that this was sent to the police and that the teen himself was missing for 2 weeks. There's no crime scene. Then we switch back to his normal camera, which has been filming him recording himself on his camera phone the entire time, which again, I think it was supposed to be an intentional way of showing that the camera itself is haunted. And then it cuts and he goes outside and he's playing with his boom mic. There's no real reason for this scene other than to, you know, stretch out that runtime. My cats have apparently gone crazy today. Immediately after he cuts to outside, he cuts back inside and he's still playing with the boom mic. Now that he has a boom mic, we can hear him breathe. And he's a very heavy breather. Then the camera cuts and it comes back on and Daniel says something happened off screen. He keeps saying that he's trying to record everything so that he catches this stuff, but every time something is happening, it's happening off screen. Found footage nightmare. And he's looking into a mirror in the living room and he decides that he's going to play Bloody Mary. So he then cuts and then he cuts back to him setting up the camera on the tripod. If you're going to cut between that, okay? You can cut from when you say you're going to do Bloody Mary to the time you start doing Bloody Mary. We don't need to see you set up the camera on the tripod because it'll be inferred when you turn the camera on. And so he plays Bloody Mary, and then there's a whole 2 minutes of the camera glitching. And then he's like, "What's that? What was that? Oh, I'm scared." He's acting very scared even though nothing really happened. And then there's a scream from off screen and the camera falls. And then it cuts to a title card that says, "This is the last known recording." And it's him backlit staring into the camera. And then he walks from his room to the kitchen and goes into the knife drawer and picks up a knife. And this entire time, the camera is glitching. Then he puts down the camera, he stands in front of it, and then walks off into the distance. And then something throws the camera onto the ground. Then we get the Spider-Man app. It's a cartoon crack in the screen. He walks away, and while his back is facing the camera, he's moving like he's cutting his own throat. Then it glitches, and he's face down in front of the camera, and there's cartoon blood on the screen. So he did half a pirouette before he landed in front of the screen. Okay, I didn't realize he had the music in him as well as Bloody Mary. Then it glitches and he's picked up the camera. He walks outside and that's the end of the movie. It ends with a title card that states, "Daniel will be laid to rest in Southampton." but the Providence said that he'd been missing in 2011. The movie came out in 2020. I'm going to have to say it, and because I'd say this if this was done by someone who is not autistic. This movie was not good. When you make a movie, the movie itself becomes its own world, and as a film creator, you create the mythology of that world. By the end, it seemed like you totally forgot what you were trying to say in the first part of the movie. Because it went from a haunted house to a haunted parlor game. It went from a missing kid to a dead kid. This is why even found footage needs to have a storyline. It has to have plot points that you need to hit. When you make a movie, you should have certain points that you want highlighted in the movie written down. And you can say, okay, I hit this one, I hit this one. Does this one match these two? It wasn't really a story. Well, this one ended on a very low note. And I know that this is coming from a guy who somehow totally forgot to put in the introduction for his last episode, but I noticed it now and I'm going to redo it. Hopefully tomorrow is going to be a better day. There's always tomorrow. There's always tomorrow. But if you've seen this movie, please, like always, leave me a note down below. And if you haven't seen this movie, it will be linked in the description. So that's it for this episode of 31 Days of Found Horror. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for tuning in. And come back tomorrow for another found footage nightmare. Oh, I need some water.